one side of that story is that, we're getting better and better abstractions, and we're getting better abstractions, we're getting more support. So 10 years ago, it would have been totally impossible for me as like a single person to run this video editing tool.
Yes.
That's kind of now in the cloud, and people are using it. And I had a case where it was recommended by a relatively popular Russian educational YouTuber, kind of part of, there's this whole thing, markdown to video, version controlled videos and things like that, but there's also, for people that can't do markdown or version control, I've built a thing that allows you to create a video from a PowerPoint very easily. You type up what you wanted to say into the speaker notes, you upload the PowerPoint, 2 minutes later you have a video. After integrating the Russian voices, this kind of Russian educational YouTube channel or kind of author figured it out, he liked it and recommended it for his audience. And overnight I had 15,000 people from Russia coming and bombarding the system with requests to kind of build lots of crazy Russian videos. Kind of woke up in the morning, looked at the metrics and said, oh, this is interesting, something happened last night. But I did like this stuff scaled up on its own, it scaled down on its own when it was no longer needed. No problem at all. It was just another regular day for me. I didn't have to sweat anything about that. And from that perspective, it's totally amazing being able to, abstract that kind of stuff away.
Yeah.
Or as a gray hair, that had to do malloc and free and things like that. And I remember when, we started doing Java, the objections that, I had and other people around me had, how will it free up the memory when it needs to free up the memory, and not really believing that. I see a lot of that now with people thinking about delegating, scaling to a cloud provider. And if I'm being honest, like, yes, I can do capacity planning. I've done it before. I've done it successfully before. I've done it less successfully before. But I'd trust people working for Amazon to do that better than I can. Yeah. Similarly, yes, I've done malloc and free, but kind of would somebody who's spending, most of their life doing just-in-time optimizations of memory allocation do that better than me? Probably yes. I mean, and this is something that is, happening over and over. I remember when I was a kid, I used to compete in demo scene kind of competitions, assembly language, graphics programming. And we did crazy stuff with assembly language to fit it into like 128 bytes or 256 bytes and to squeeze performance out of, a 286 or a 386 machine. That was amazing. And I remember when Whatcom, was it 8.5 or 9.5? I'm not really sure. Whatcom C, let's say 9.5 came out, and the fucking compiler couldn't beat me in optimizing the code. And I've realized, I'm spending my life on this, and a tool can do it better than I can.
I was writing device drivers and stuff like that for a PC manufacturer at the time, and the 486 processor came out, and that was the thing that did it for me. I started looking at the 486 processor, and I thought, and it had all this stuff where it got multiple pipelines, and it would dump the pipelines depending on the instruction order and do all this optimization. I thought, I'm never going to be able to think of all of that stuff. I'm moving up the stack.
and to bring this back to something more useful, so it's not just two old blokes kind of reminiscing about the good old past. I think every couple of years there's a shift like that, and we on one hand we lose some of the stuff that kind of we can control, but on the other hand, people can do much more than before, and they can do much better stuff than before. 10 years ago, a single person with kind of some knowledge of programming, launching a reasonably good product without even understanding how network works was impossible. But now we're getting better products as a result of that. We're getting people entering the industry. You know, at the end of the day, there's a good product out there that somebody's using as a result of that. And that's amazing. That's totally amazing. On the other hand, I think we are not fully abstract from all of that yet. And maybe in 10 years' time, you will, you know, you'll be able to ignore it completely. But I think it's worth really knowing these things and thinking about these things, and especially applying the principles of good design to that. I think, you know, one of these magical things that it comes up every few years. I remember when object relational mappers came along, and I was working with a team where the client hired me to figure out why their Oracle database is really struggling. And the database size wasn't anywhere close to what kind of needed to you know, get it to struggle. And I reviewed a bit of code. They were loading up some transactions and displaying in a data grid for the kind of accountants, and kind of tracing the database calls. I just kind of traced the database calls to load up this thing. There was something like 50,000 requests going to load up one table of data, because you know they modeled this amazingly wonderful domain-driven, you know, entities, value objects, and things like that. And then they've mapped it to a SQL database, and the magic happened in between. And kind of, from one perspective, it's totally ridiculous. But from another perspective, you had a team of people who had no idea how to do good Oracle development, building up a product that was kind of useful, it's just not performing. So then they brought somebody who brought in somebody who knew what to measure, how to measure it. We replaced that loading thing with, you know, databases are really, really good at tabular data. They kind of, you know, so
that is their thing.
It's kind of their thing, yes. So we replaced the data loading layer with a efficient query execution, and things started flying.